You were designed to bear the weight of meaningful and significant change in your life. You are alive to shoulder the weight of responsibility and improvement and service to other people. Maybe you had an overbearing mom. Maybe your dad wasn't around. Maybe society or other people made excuses for you because of your circumstances, and you never realized, I am meant to bear the burden of responsibility. And you are. With a myriad of conflicts and struggles and challenges that we as men are faced with on a daily basis, it would be very easy for us to become contentious and frustrated and bitter towards life and people and circumstances, maybe even God. I've seen this throughout my time doing this movement and participating in growth for men, even in myself, where it's very easy to put responsibility, burden, and blame on external circumstances and sources of our frustrations and contentions. But what I found is the more that we do this, where we begin to put our blame on other people and outside circumstances, the less likely we are to address and deal with the struggles of life and the things that we're confronted with. So today I wanted to talk with you about 4 things in particular that I've implemented in my life to ensure that I do not grow bitter towards people, towards things, towards experiences, and towards outside factors, because frankly, it just doesn't serve me. And at the end of the day, men, I think we need to decide what it is that serves us, whether it's the mindsets and the behaviors and the actions, and of course the results, relative to the things that hinder us and hurt us and keep us from our ultimate objectives. Before I get into the meat of the discussion, just want to share with you my good friends and partners over at Montana Knife Company. These guys are not a source of frustration for me, and they shouldn't be a source of frustration for you. I've used knives in the past, and I've had tools out in the field when I'm hunting or in the kitchen cooking for my family that have not performed. And in the spirit of what we're talking about today, I want things that I'm not going to be frustrated with. I want tools that I can use to complete the mission at hand. And if you're looking for a great knife, 100% made in America, then look no further than Montana Knife Company. And if you do, please use the code Order of Man at checkout. All one word, Order of Man at checkout. And you'll save some money when you do. Again, it's montanaknifecompany.com. Use the code Order of Man. All right, guys, let me give you 4 keys that you can use, especially if you're feeling frustrated, contentious, bitter, angry, you have animosity towards people or things. Number 1 is you have to make a decision. I think I've said this, and maybe even at this point, beating a dead horse. You need to make decisions. You need to decide. I think too many men in life are allowing circumstances, people, things to dictate and to act upon them. But I also think if there's one thing that makes you a man, it's your ability to take outside circumstances and not allow yourself to be dictated by it, but decide how it's going to impact you. We too often, and I see this all the time in men's spaces, men's movements, other organizations that attempt to do what it is we're doing, where they think, this person's the enemy. All women are this way. The economy's that way. The government's this way. And I'm not saying that we need to be blind or oblivious to the threats that exist, but once we start lumping all people, certain people, or all experiences as toxic or the enemy, that we begin to play a little bit of the victim card. And I don't want you to play the victim card, because if you are the victim, by definition, that means that you are either unwilling or incapable of dealing with whatever you might be confronting. So if you're in an abusive relationship, for example, let's say emotionally abusive, and you decide, hey, I'm going to paint all women as the enemy, then you are you're the victim. There's nothing you can do about it. Women are women, and that's just the way it is, and there's nothing I can do about it, and therefore you're just going to play the perpetual victim. If you decide that the government is out to get you and there's nothing you can do about it, and you're just playing a zero sum game, and it is what it is, or the economy is what it is, or your boss is the way he is, there's nothing you can do about it. What I found is that we all make up narratives. We all make up stories that we tell ourselves. Some of those stories are based in reality, and some of those stories are completely wrong, completely off base. But what I have noticed is that all of the stories that we make up in life are a combination of some truth plus our perception of it, plus the story that we create around it. And I've seen way too many men take elements of truth and distort it through their perception in order to conjure up and create a narrative that just is not accurate. And if you're going to make up a story about your life, and you're going to make up a story about the circumstances or the relationship or the business partnership or the company that you used to work with or how the economy is running, why wouldn't you make a decision to make up a story that serves you? And I'm going to talk more about what that might look like. But the reality is that if we're all lying to ourselves about these experiences that we have, we might as well make up one that serves us. And for me, what that looks like is deciding that I am not going to be bitter. I'm not going to be contentious. I'm not going to be hostile towards other people. I'm going to look at these as opportunities, and I'm going to delve deeper into that here in a minute. Number 2 is when you are confronted with challenging or maybe even tragic circumstances, you really have to decide how you're going to frame this. So you've already made the decision. I'm not going to get bitter. I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to blow things up. I'm not going to blow up at that person. I'm not going to get vengeful. I'm not going to take it out on anybody else or anything else. But now we have to frame it. We have to reframe it. Because right now the framing that you have is something that is not serving you or anybody else. You might be toxic. You might be angry at a broken relationship. You might be frustrated with the state of affairs in the economy. We see this all the time with mass shooters and school shooters, and they're angry, they're upset. And maybe there's some validity to some of their frustrations, but they've decided instead of being healthy, they're going to be bitter and contentious and resentful and vengeful. And they end up doing things that are, unspeakable things, quite honestly. Going to shoot innocent people, for example. And we have that happen. Gosh, it seems like just about every day. But the framing that you need to implement in your life is not that this person is necessarily out to get you, although they might. So we need to protect ourselves. But some of the framing might be that maybe they're not out to get you. Maybe their own self-interests are at conflict with yours. Maybe people don't think as much about us as we believe they do. And what I would suggest to you is that we show gratitude, not necessarily for the actual thing that you might be experiencing. So, for example, you might get laid off from your employment, and it would be very difficult for you to express gratitude in that moment, in the minute details of it, or in the micro of what you're dealing with. But overall, how many times have we had things that have not worked out in our favor? Broken relationships, broken businesses, losing jobs, going through a lawsuit, medical conditions, all sorts of things that we deal with every single day where in the moment it felt horrible. But when we pan out 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we realize, oh, you know what? That actually was a blessing in disguise. And how do you get to that point? You have gratitude. And that's the framing that I want you to have. When you have a broken relationship, be grateful. Be grateful for the woman that you were with. Be grateful for the times that you had together, the experiences that you shared, the lessons that you've learned, and how you are a better man because that woman was in your life, even if it was for a short period of time or a very long period of time. When you have a breakdown in your employment, and let's say you hypothetically get laid off, okay, be grateful that you were able to work with an organization that you believed in. Be grateful that somebody else paid you for on-the-job training. Be grateful that 10 years down the road, you are better as a skilled individual than you were when you started. That's a decision. And that's point number one, was to make that decision. And point number two is to reframe the circumstances, and instead of just deciding why life is out to get you and why everybody hates you and why it doesn't work out for you and why if it weren't for bad luck, you'd have no luck at all. These are the things that we constantly tell ourselves. And I would suggest to you that maybe that's not it at all. Maybe things are happening and conspiring for you. You just can't see it yet. And if you want to expedite the process, then I think gratitude is in order. Not gratitude for the circumstances that you might be going through, but gratitude for the circumstances that you've been through and how they've made you a better person. Number three is to learn. One of the questions I get asked quite often is, when dealing with difficult circumstances, again, a breakdown in a relationship, a loss of a job, past decisions that you've made that you don't feel good about, and you don't feel good about who you are, maybe even, is how do you get over that? And the way that I found to get over those things is to learn from what you've done, to learn from the feedback of potentially hurting other people, to learn from the feedback of potentially other people hurting you. If you have a breakdown in a relationship, how can you be better for the next relationship? I mean, I can't tell you how often, for example, I see so many men who are in one relationship and they got hurt or they hurt somebody else, and they get into another relationship and it's the same, and that one breaks down. And then they get into another relationship and that one breaks down. You are the only common denominator in this equation. So do you think that it's all women are horrible, or do you think maybe you ought to learn something and apply something that you have not yet learned? How many times do we hear, well, capitalism is evil and they're out to get everybody. And those are people who are bitter and contentious. And yet you take a look at the record of employment and you see that they are not stepping up in powerful ways. And they think, oh, well, it's my boss. It's the economy. It's the company. It's greed. It's this. It's that. You are the common denominator. Oh man, all my friends, they always, take advantage of me, or I can't keep a friendship, or I don't have good friends, and all people are this and all those people are that. That's you, brother. You are the only common denominator in those equations. So what is it about you that needs to change? I'm not saying to appease other people, but to live a life that you're proud of, that you're excited about, that you care about, that you're passionate for. What is it that needs to change? Ask yourself, if all of your relationships end the same way, what are you doing or not doing that you ought to be doing or not doing? If you haven't kept a job, in the last 10 to 15 to 20 years, what are you doing or not doing that you ought to be doing in order to build a career on something that's meaningful and significant to you? I'm not going to dive too much into this, but we've been talking about this for 10 years. If it's communication, if it's a skill set, if it's a conversation, if it's being assertive, if it's being the man that you were born and meant to be, then all right, let's talk about it and figure it out. But stop pawning it off on other people. Now, other people are going to have an impact in your life. Sure. That relationship that just broke down, it wasn't only you. She's got a part to play in that. The fact that your boss let you go because you weren't performing doesn't mean that you were the only person responsible for your underperformance, but you can't control what she does. You can't control what your boss does. You can't control what the economy does. You can't control what the president is doing. You can influence those things to a degree, varying degrees, but at the end of the day, the only thing you can control is yourself. And so what are you learning? What are the lessons being learned? Is it that I'm an asshole and I don't matter and I'm unimportant and nobody loves me? Or is it, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. I could have showed up more powerfully. I could have been more communicative. I could have worked harder. Those are the things that matter. And of course, the last piece of this puzzle, number 4, is to apply the lessons that you're learning. So if you're in a relationship and you realize that all of your relationships break down after a certain period of time, and I'm talking about your romantic relationships, and you learn that I'm not a great communicator. Okay, good. Good to know. Now, what can you do to communicate more effectively? What books do you need to read? What lessons do you need to learn? What information do you need to apply? And it's going to feel really, really awkward. It's like a child who's learning to take their first steps. And they won't vocalize this because they're not old enough to be able to vocalize it. But we know when our children are frustrated, even when they're taking their first steps. They get up, maybe they hold onto that coffee table, or they're holding onto the couch, and they're trying to take their first unassisted steps, and they take a step or half a step, and they fall down, and maybe they cry or they show some sign of frustration. I get it. We would all feel that way, and we do all feel that way. And as you try new things, it's going to be really, really uncomfortable. But you know what? As a man, you are born and bred to embrace discomfort. You were designed to bear the weight of meaningful and significant change in your life. You are alive to shoulder the weight of responsibility and improvement and service to other people. And if you don't feel that way, it's only because you haven't exercised those muscles yet. Maybe you had an overbearing mom. Maybe your dad wasn't around. Maybe society or other people made excuses for you because of your circumstances, and you never realized, I am meant to bear the burden of responsibility. And you are. You definitely are. But it requires application. It requires thoughtfulness, and it requires, part 2, application. How are you better in spite of your divorce? How are you better in spite of, maybe not even in spite of, how are you better because of your divorce? How are you better because you lost that job? How are you better because you got passed over for the promotion? How are you better because you're not as tight with your children as you'd like to be? How are you better because you've been through the burden of being overweight and unhealthy? That's a reframe. This is not meant to destroy me. This is meant to improve me. And how are you better? And what exactly are you doing to improve yourself? Guys, if you want some tools and resources on this, the first thing that I'd suggest to you is our battle plan. This is something I use every single day. If you're not watching this on YouTube or Spotify, I'm holding up our 12-week battle planner. I go through this every single day. I've got my notes here. I've got my goals. I've got my objectives. I've got checkpoints. I do after action reviews because I want to be better today than I was yesterday. Not in all ways. It's not going to happen as quickly as I would like it, but I want to get better. And I'm working to improve. And I'm working to get better. And that's why I'm not bitter about the things that happen in my life. Broken relationships, not growing the business as fast as I would like, not seeing the results with my physical health, for example, as quickly as I'd like to see them. I'm not bitter about it. I'm optimistic about my level of improvement. So if you want to check that out, you can go to store.orderofman.com and check out the battle planner. You can also go to orderofman.com/battle ready. And I'm going to teach you these tools over a course of 30 days where you're not going to be bitter anymore about the things that happen in your life, whether they're self-imposed or not. Bad things happen. You're going to face struggle. That's inevitable. The only question remains, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to get tired and lazy and sloppy and bitter? Or are you going to become stronger and have resolve and get better and improve and serve and use the wounds that we have for the betterment of our lives and the people we care about? That's a question that I cannot answer for you. It's a question to point number 1 that you have to decide for yourself. So that's what I've got for you today, guys. Check it out. Go to orderaman.com/battle ready. Pick up that program. It's free. You're going to get emails. You're going to get conversations from me. And you're also going to get my own personal email so that you can respond directly to me and we can talk about the things that you're dealing with and struggling with and how we might be able to help you improve. It's our goal as men to step up, and life happens and it's hard. And I don't want to see us acting like children, like boys, throwing temper tantrums and breaking down and falling apart because of something in life that we have to deal with. I want to see you rise above because I want to rise above. And I want to see you get better. So that's my message for you today, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. Hit me up in email. Hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And again, check out orderman.com/battle ready. All right, guys, we'll be back next week for our interview. Until then, go out there, take action. Do not grow bitter and become the man you are meant to be.